Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025. The U.S. House is slowly working on the modified budget reconciliation bill, the tax cut and spending cut one big beautiful bill that passed the Senate yesterday, with Vice President JD Vance breaking the tie. Slowly, because Speaker Mike Johnson and President Donald Trump have been meeting with both conservative and moderate Republicans opposed to the bill for different reasons. Either it does not cut enough spending or cuts too much, and Republicans can afford to lose only 3 of their members since all Democrats plan to vote no. Also slowly because Democrats have been using parliamentary delaying tactics. Coming up, some of the debate so far, and we'll get an update from a reporter. FCC Chair Brendan Carr lays out what he calls a Build America agenda in his first major policy speech as chair. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota, he says his plan will unleash high-speed infrastructure builds, restore America's leadership in wireless, boost the U.S. space economy, and advance our national security. Paramount settles a lawsuit with President Trump over the editing of a CBS News 60 Minutes interview with then Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris. The settlement is $16 million. We'll talk about it with Brian Steinberg, senior TV editor with Variety. And the State Department and Pentagon asked about the U.S. reportedly pausing some weapon shipments to Ukraine, including air defense missiles. Roll call writes Republicans were scrambling Wednesday to salvage their big, beautiful reconciliation bill amid a revolt from conservatives over the measure's growing price tag. President Donald Trump and Republican leadership were busy buttonholing members from across the conference's political spectrum, with centrists also still wary of deeper cuts to Medicaid that came over from the Senate Tuesday. Then were in the House-passed bill. Procedural votes on the rule for floor debate were held open for more than 2 hours as House leaders tried to convince members of the hard-right Freedom Caucus to back the measure. After 2 hours had passed, the ranks of members thinned in the chamber while leaders huddled with conservative holdouts in a nearby room, and Democrats began occasional shouts seeking regular order. That was from a roll call. This morning, C-SPAN spoke with a noticed political reporter, Reese Gorman, about where things stood within the House Republican Conference when it comes to this one big, beautiful bill.
There is support to it, but it's just more your rank-and-file members. It's the members who are really going to vote with leadership just about all the time. They don't necessarily come out and against anything for the vast majority, but the opposition is great. You have the conservatives, the fiscal hardliners who believe that this bill raises the deficit, that they bring it up, and that it didn't cut enough. They believe the House bill cut significantly more, and then the Senate kind of took a lot of those cuts out and raised the spending levels within the bill. And so you have those people, which is Chip Roy, Ralph Norman, who both voted no in the Rules Committee yesterday. And now they have also, Ralph Norman, to his part, has pledged that he will be a no on every single bill that comes to, on every single vote, rather, that comes to the floor for this bill, whether it be the rule vote that's supposed to happen later today, whether it be final passage, what have you. He is voting no on that. He has pledged. And now they can only lose 3 votes and still pass the bill. They already have Thomas Massie, who is just assumed to be a no on everything. You have Warren Davidson, who already voted no on the original version of the bill last month, I believe. I guess now it's April or May when they passed it, 2 months ago rather. And so you have 2 no's right there. If you have Ralph Norman chime in there voting no, then you can't lose another vote. And we already know, just from the public knows, that there's significantly more people who plan to vote no, which would inevitably tank this bill. And that's just the conservatives. You have the moderates over here, such as David Valadao, Brian Fitzpatrick, Rob Bresnahan, etc., who are not necessarily. Valadao has been a public no on Twitter. He posted it. The rest of them are kind of keeping cards close to their chest. They have expressed displeasure with it. There was a group of moderates that signed a letter to Speaker Mike Johnson, to Senate Majority Leader John Thune, late last month, where they said that basically if the Senate kept these Medicaid provisions in the bill that they were currently considering, that they would not be able to vote for it, they would not be able to support it. A lot of those provisions remain in the bill currently, and so if that letter holds true, if they stand by that letter that they signed, then they likely will not vote for the bill, and that would be an issue for Mike Johnson, because that's just more defections that he has. But in the grand scheme of things, the vast majority of these, there's a wide spectrum of the conference that don't like the bill for different reasons. And another issue is if you fix one person's issues, it's going to make more people on the other side not like it because they have such opposite oppositions.
Notice political reporter Reese Gorman speaking to C-SPAN this morning. We also interviewed this morning Congressman Ralph Norman, Republican of South Carolina, the House Freedom Caucus member, talking about his opposition.
With reconciliation, we have one chance, one moment to curb the spending that has plagued this country and is the cancer that's going to take this country down if we don't get it under control. The House bill that we sent over did just that. Our baseline cut was $1.6 trillion with an optimum of $2 trillion. We met the 1.6, and the Senate basically violated what we sent over in the House. For every dollar we had that was spent, you had to cut $1, and it just didn't do that. Secondly, a lot of the key reforms, like with the Inflation Reduction Act, the Green New Scam, was put back in place, and I don't know how long we can continue to do this. So our position was to send it back, to vote it down, send it back to the Senate with some key changes that we agreed to in the House. And we'll see how it plays out today. I voted against it in the Rules Committee yesterday. Of course, it passed, but it will be on the floor today, and we'll see exactly what's coming from it. But what I see right now, I don't like.
And you said there were proposed changes. Tell us about some of the further cuts that you support or want to see in the bill. Does that include changes to tax provisions?
Well, yeah, the tax provisions, but there are other things like funding for sex surgeries was put back in. On the IRA credits, they had foreign entity exclusions where China could, we had to jump through hoops before they were allowed to get a paycheck from the American people. That was put back in. Funding for illegals and Medicaid. We fought hard for that, as well as able-bodied men. That was put back in there with the Senate bill. It makes no sense. And so that's why we're taking the stand that we are. And we want to pass what President Trump wants. I mean, he was for taking all the IRA green scam deals out. And instead of getting them out, we're pretty much cementing them in for years to come. Funding for Planned Parenthood, we had it had banned for a decade. They put it only banned for a year. Why a year? If it's wrong for a year, why isn't it wrong for 10 years? It's things like that to me are benchmarks that we have to follow and renegotiate with the Senate. Now, I know the Senate's on a short number of people that they can lose, and it's the same thing in the House. But when are we going to face this problem of overspending? And that's probably the major thing, along with the other provisions that just, again, spin this country into oblivion.
Congressman Ralph Norman, Republican from South Carolina, member of the Freedom Caucus, on C-SPAN's Washington Journal program this morning. President Donald Trump writing on his Truth Social account in all caps, "One big, beautiful deal is all about growth. If passed, America will have an economic renaissance like never before. It is already happening just in anticipation of the beautiful bill. Deficit cut in half, record investment, cash factories, jobs pouring into the USA. MAGA." That was in all caps. CQ has a fact sheet on the Senate amended H.R. 1, One Big Beautiful Bill Act, that reads, "The GOP bill as amendment by the Senate enacts much of President Trump's policy agenda, permanently extending expiring individual and business tax cuts enacted as part of the 2017 tax cut law, while adding new temporary tax breaks for popular causes promised by President Trump. To partly offset the cost of the measure's tax provisions, it modifies Medicaid, the food stamp program, the federal student loan program, and numerous other programs to reduce federal spending or generate savings. It also appropriates more than $448 billion in mandatory funding for Trump administration priorities and other needs, including $153 billion for defense, $89 billion for immigration enforcement, and $89.5 billion for border control and security. And finally, it raises the statutory debt limit by $5 trillion. That was from CQ, Congressional Quarterly. U.S. House today got as far as debating the rule to the bill, but procedural votes were held open for hours, and not closed as negotiations with the Republican holdouts were continuing off the floor. Here is some of the debate, though, that happened on the floor. Congressman Nick Langworthy, Republican from New York, in support of the bill.
I rise today in strong support of the rule to consider H.R. 1, the one big, beautiful bill, because the stakes for the American people could not be higher. We are rapidly approaching a fiscal cliff. If we do nothing, the Trump tax cuts, the most pro-growth tax reforms in generations, will expire. That means higher taxes on nearly every American. That means a gutted child tax credit. That means small businesses losing the tools they need to survive and to thrive. That means less take-home pay for working families already that have been crushed by the Biden-era inflation. This isn't some hypothetical scenario. This is the Democrats' game plan. They want to raise taxes. They want to punish success. They want more people dependent on government and fewer people building independent lives. And Republicans will not let that happen. With H.R. 1, we're stepping to lock in the Trump tax cuts permanently and to provide targeted new relief to the workers and to the families who keep this country running. Seniors, tipped workers, and those putting in overtime to get ahead. But, Mr. Speaker, this bill also takes a critical step to protect and to strengthen Medicaid, a vital program for millions of Americans. And let me be very clear about something, that this isn't anything radical. We're restoring the same common sense work requirements that President Bill Clinton signed into law into the 90s, one of the most popular things he did. And back then, a Democratic president worked with a Republican Congress to say that if you're able-bodied and adult without dependents and you're receiving government assistance, you should be expected to work, train, or volunteer and participate in the economy. And ladies and gentlemen, it worked. Poverty dropped, employment rose, and millions of Americans moved from welfare to work and independence. But Democrats today have abandoned that model. They want permanent government dependency. They'll oppose any form of accountability, and they'll vilify anyone who dares to suggest that opportunity should come with responsibility. Well, Republicans are standing up for what works and what's right, and we're saying Medicaid must remain a lifeline for the truly vulnerable, children, seniors, the people with disabilities, and low-income parents. But for able-bodied adults without kids, yes, you should try to work. Just like in the 90s, just like under President Bill Clinton. This isn't extreme. It's not partisan. It's proven policy that respects both taxpayers and lifts people up. Mr. Speaker, this bill delivers economic relief, fiscal sanity, and basic fairness, and it secures the future of our economy and our safety net. Let's choose the path that's been tested and proven to work. Let's approve this rule. Let's pass one big, beautiful bill, and let's get this country back on track. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Congressman Nick Langworthy, Republican from New York, on the House floor during debate on the rule to the budget reconciliation bill, the one big, beautiful bill. But that's as far as it got, debate. And the procedural votes were held open as talks with reluctant Republicans were occurring off the floor. Indications that the Republicans do not have enough votes on their own to move forward on this bill and eventually pass it. And that's because House Democrats held a rally today on the steps of the Capitol building to announce their united opposition. Hakeem Jeffries of New York is the House Minority Leader.
We are here today united as House Democrats to make clear to the American people that every single House Democrat will stand up for your health care, stand up for your Medicaid, stand up for your Medicare, stand up for the Affordable Care Act, stand up for nutritional assistance for our children, our seniors, and our veterans, stand up for our hospitals, stand up for our nursing homes, stand up for our community-based health centers, and stand up against massive tax breaks for GOP billionaire donors. And that is why every single House Democrat will vote hell no against this one big, ugly bill. And all we need are 4 House Republicans to join us in defense of their constituents who will suffer mightily from this bill. Children will be hurt. Families will be hurt. People with disabilities will be hurt. Women will be hurt by what is an all-out assault on the health care of the American people. An unprecedented assault, ripping health care away from more than 17 million Americans. Premiums, copays, and deductibles for other people on private insurance will go up all across the country. Hospitals will close. Nursing homes will shut down. Community-based clinics will not have the ability to operate. And as a result, people are going to die connected to this one big ugly bill. Tens of thousands of unnecessary American deaths per year. Shame on Republicans for even bringing this bill to the House floor. So all we need are 4 Republicans to join us in support of their constituents, to have John McCain-level courage and stand up in defense of the health care of the American people.
The House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, on the steps of the Capitol building in front of all the other House Democrats lined up behind him on those steps. So far today, the Democrats have utilized some delay tactics on the budget reconciliation bill, calling a point of order that the rule to the bill violates the prohibition of unfunded mandates. That led to a roll call vote on question of consideration. And then Congressional Black Caucus members, one by one, asking unanimous consent to make and order an amendment to the rule that would protect against cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. They knew that it would not be made in order, and in fact, the chair did rule it out of order, but each one took some time, and that was also a delaying tactic. And there could be more throughout the day. But at the moment, the House is not moving forward because the Republicans themselves do not have the votes to approve the rule and actually get on the budget reconciliation bill debate, the one big, beautiful bill. The fight over the reconciliation bill has also been playing out on social media as Democrats and Republicans engage with their constituents. Congressman Jason Smith, Republican of Missouri, chair of the Ways and Means Committee, which covers taxes, posted a video featuring clips of President Trump.
This moment has been years in the making, traveling on the road to hear from real Americans. Petersburg, West Virginia, Peachtree City, Georgia, Yukon, Oklahoma, Staten Island, New York, Kimball, Minnesota, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Denton, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Scottsdale, Arizona, Erie, Pennsylvania, Salt Lake City, Utah, Des Moines, Iowa, about how the 2017 tax cuts benefited them. The greatest political comeback of all time has led to the greatest pro-worker, pro-family, pro-farmer, and pro-small business tax bill of all time.
The one big, beautiful bill will create more than 7 million jobs, add economic growth, reduce taxes for the typical American, and increase take-home pay for the normal family of 4. One of the most important pieces of legislation in the history of our country.
Congress must deliver it as quickly as possible.
Congressman Jason Smith, Republican from Missouri, and President Donald Trump contained within that video, that produced video posted by Congressman Smith. A video by Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, Democrat from Pennsylvania, shows her finishing up a phone call.
Okay, thank you. Well, I appreciate your calling, and you take care. Okay. Hi, we're back in the office this morning. They have just started debate on the floor, and a lot of folks are calling to express their concerns about this big, ugly bill that Republicans are trying to ram through. Most of them haven't even read it yet. We've started debate on the House floor. I'm monitoring it here on the TV in my office for a couple minutes, answering some phone calls. But we need to convince 4 Republicans to vote against this bill. And why would you vote for it? This bill is going to strip health care from 17 million Americans. It's going to take SNAP benefits away from kids and veterans and folks with disabilities, it's going to raise the national debt by over $3.4 trillion. And there's still more stuff in the bill that our Republican colleagues are just starting to find out about. So this bill needs to go down. Please join us in contacting your reps to make sure that they vote against the big, ugly bill. Thanks. We'll keep you posted.
A video by Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, Democrat of Pennsylvania. And a story at The Hill. The House is in a holding pattern as GOP leaders lean on Republican holdouts to allow President Trump's big, beautiful bill to advance. A 5-minute procedural vote has remained open, and leadership has told House lawmakers they can leave the floor. Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, and President Trump have spent much of the day trying to win over deficit hawks in the House Freedom Caucus and beyond, who are threatening to block the bill and grind floor action to a halt. That was from The Hill. Wall Street today, the Dow down 10, NASDAQ up 190, S&P up 29. President Trump writing on Truth Social, "It's my great honor to announce that I have just made a trade deal with the Socialist Republic of Vietnam after speaking with To Lam, the highly respected General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam. It will be a great deal of cooperation between our two countries. The terms are that Vietnam will pay the United States a 20% tariff on any and all goods sent into our territory and a 40% tariff on any transshipping. In return, Vietnam will do something they have never done before, give the United States of America total access to their markets for trade." Part of the post from President Trump. Story from AP, an analysis finds a critical group of U.S. employers would face a direct cost of $82.3 billion from President Trump's current tariff plans, a sum that could potentially be managed through price hikes, layoffs, hiring freezes, or lower profit margins. The analysis by the J.P. Morgan Chase Institute is among the first to measure the direct costs created by the import taxes on businesses with $10 million to $1 billion in annual revenue, a category including roughly a third of private sector U.S. workers. That was from AP. The Federal Communications Commission FCC Chair Brendan Carr gave his first major policy speech today, outlining his Build America agenda for the FCC. He's been a commissioner since 2017 and chair since January, when he was named by President Trump. He was at the Vicor Teleconstruction Company, a wireless infrastructure construction company in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
The FCC on my watch will focus on unleashing high-speed infrastructure builds. That means modernizing the regulations that have been driving up costs and holding back internet builds. The good news is we know the playbook here that works. When I helped lead the FCC's efforts during the first Trump administration in 2018 to streamline small cell regulations, we saw record-breaking capital investment and network build-out, including right here in Sioux Falls. In fact, Sioux Falls was one of the very first cities in the country to go live with 5G, thanks to the permitting reforms that were put in place by my good friend Mayor Paul Tenhaken right here in Sioux Falls. So our Build America agenda will pick up where we left off. In fact, here's some news for you. I'm announcing today that the FCC will vote later this month to start a rulemaking that will accelerate the transition from aging copper line networks that too many communities are still on to modern high-speed ones. You see, back in D.C., we have rules on the books that have been forcing providers to continue to invest billions of dollars in those old networks, even when they want to shift those investments over to build new ones. So our goal here is pretty simple. We're aiming to free up billions of dollars for investment in new networks. But that's not all. I'll be asking my FCC colleagues to vote this month on an item that will revise the agency's pole attachment rules. For the uninitiated, the FCC's pole attachment rules govern the rules of the road for utility pole owners and broadband builders as they try to attach new high-speed connections to those lines. In fact, I saw firsthand some of the challenges there last night here in Sioux Falls when I joined Jordan and his crew as they were lashing new high-speed internet infrastructure onto utility poles, upgrading 30-year-old plant.
FCC Chair Brendan Carr in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He said in a news release before the speech that he chose Sioux Falls because that's where he first put on a hard hat and harness to climb a tower. And Kello TV reports that he stopped by Kelloland Media Group studio for a tour and climbed their 200-foot tower. This is Washington Today. A headline at Variety: Paramount to pay Trump $60 million to settle 60 Minutes lawsuit. The subhead: agreement removes obstacle to CBS and Paramount Pictures parent company completing $8 billion merger with Skydance Media. And joining us now is Brian Steinberg, senior TV editor with Variety. Thank you for being with us. What was this lawsuit about, and what are the terms of the settlement?
Well, it's what it's about is a great question. Not people aren't entirely sure. At the root of it was a 60 Minutes broadcast early before the election, in which Kamala Harris was interviewed, and the interview was edited in two different ways: one for a promo on Face the Nation, and one for a 60-minute segment on 60 Minutes. They were differently edited, and the Trump team used that to kind of suggest that there was some chicanery going on. There was not. It just was edited for different time constraints and different formats. In any case, the Trump team has suggested that CBS had to deceive voters on the eve of the election and has held up a $20 billion lawsuit filed in Texas to make its point.
And the settlement terms, what are they?
That's right. That's $16 million, a far sight short of $20 billion. But, it's in line with what ABC and Disney paid late last year for a similar problem when George Stephanopoulos identified Trump as being the perpetrator of a different crime than he was said to be, and around $15 million for that. These are, I think, for media companies, not the biggest amounts in the world, but they are for the news organizations involved very humbling and very undermining.
What has been the reaction so far from Paramount, the White House, and outside observers like Congress and journalist organizations?
Well, journalist organizations are aghast. These are whatever the lawsuits have been viewed to be relatively flimsy by most legal in most legal circles, and probably not. There's no defamation going on, no libel. These are sometimes mistakes. Journalists make mistakes. They correct them when they do. So there's not like a preconceived effort to slander somebody. That in libel is really libel. When you with great forethought or malice try to impugn somebody. These are not those. These are in these cases honest attempts to relay facts. The 60 Minutes cases, there's not even a mistake being made. It's just that there were different edits of an answer to a question posted in different venues. What these lawsuits do, however, in this era where these traditional media companies are trying to move forward to streaming and facing all kinds of different economics with traditional TV, they're weakened companies. And so, these lawsuits have a magnifying effect because they, A, cost millions of dollars, and B, distract the companies at a time when they're trying to operate. So there's, at the corporate side, an effort to try and get these lawsuits off the table, get them out of the way, and go back to business. Or at the news organization, these are undermining things that go to undermine credibility of a 60 Minutes or an ABC News, and those stains don't go away so easily.
We're talking with Brian Steinberg from Variety. I read that the lawsuit was based on a consumer protection law, but there's also been a complaint filed with the FCC. Do you know the difference between these?
The FCC, they're similar. I think it's one can suggest the dots are easily connected, though people have denied that. But the FCC was wanted to have some publication, further examination of materials tied to the interviews that CBS did with Kamala Harris. FCC also has to approve the merger of CBS News parent company Paramount with a company called Skydance. That has been agreed to, is in the works. And Paramount, which is not doing that great economically, really needs to have its assets sold and move to the next controlling entity so it can move forward. The current entity of Paramount is not doing well, and its networks are limping along as cable networks are in these days. So there's an added pressure on Paramount to move forward and get this deal done. I think getting the deal done has become more important to Paramount than the credibility of its news organization.
Finally, what do you think the future holds in this area?
Well, look, it's a lot of these lawsuits happening not only from Trump and Trump people adjacent filing against CNN or threatening to file against CNN, the New York Times, Paramount, ABC News. You saw California Governor Newsom file a defamation suit against Fox News last week on similar grounds, legally not seen as very solid, but, it gets a lot of attention and it distracts the news organization from doing its job. And it gums up the works. So I could envision an era in which people don't file these suits to win money, but just to gum up the works and distract the media from doing its job, which leads to poor coverage and, less credible organizations. And that, I think, hurts the overall industry even worse than a monetary damage would do so. So I think there is some cause for alarm if this continues.
Brian Steinberg, senior TV editor with Variety. You can find his articles at variety.com and on X at Bristei, Bristei. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And a spokesperson for President Trump's legal team telling Fox News Digital, with this record settlement, President Donald J. Trump delivers another win for the American people as he once again holds the fake news media accountable for their wrongdoing and deceit. CBS and Paramount Global realized the strength of this historic case and had no choice but to settle. President Trump will always ensure that no one gets away with lying to the American people as he continues on his singular mission to make America great again. That was a statement from the legal team of President Trump. Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent from Vermont, putting out a statement. The decision by the Redstone family, the major owners of Paramount, to settle a bogus lawsuit with President Trump over a 60 Minutes report he did not like is an extremely dangerous precedent in terms of both the First Amendment and government extortion. Paramount's decision will only embolden Trump to continue attacking, suing, and intimidating the media, which he has labeled the enemy of the people. It's a dark day for independent journalism and freedom of the press, an essential part of our democracy. That was from Senator Bernie Sanders. Washington Today continues in a moment.
In a nation divided, a rare moment of unity. This fall, C-SPAN presents Ceasefire, where the shouting stops and the conversation begins. In a town where partisan fighting prevails. One table, two leaders, one goal, to find common ground. This fall, Ceasefire, on the network that doesn't take sides, only on C-SPAN.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app and wherever you get your podcasts. The Greenville News in South Carolina writes that Governor Henry McMaster, Republican of South Carolina, traveled to Washington, D.C. to chair the first meeting of the Homeland Security Advisory Council on July 2nd. The council was founded in 2002, made up of state and local government leaders, first responders, and policy advisors. It brings in figures from different career backgrounds to advise the Secretary of Homeland Security on domestic operations. The July 2nd meeting agenda included the swearing in of members and discussions on the group's focus and initiatives. That was from the Greenville News. Here is Governor McMaster at today's council meeting.
There's a lot of work to be done, and I know we've all worried about these things. What could happen if, and it could be bad. Mm-hmm. And looking ahead for the years ahead, we owe it to the country. Somebody has got to do this, and we here in this room are given an opportunity to do something. We want to help, mm-hmm. and we look forward to it. I'll be just very brief. I see it. Some of the best things that have happened recently are, one is that Donald Trump was elected. The border was closed. The military enlistments are off the chart, and America is coming back. We have a great, and the way I see our group is we are what Secretary Noem described as a typical day, where she's going from here to there and hearing reports, and there's not a whole lot of time to sit down and contemplate and think about it. And I think that's a big part of our job, is to take time to study, to learn, and give our best advice, what we think is from our point of view. And we probably don't all have the same point of view or the points from which to gain information as each of the others do, but combined, I think we represent a great asset to you, the president, and the country. So we thank you very much for you and the president giving us this opportunity.
South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, a Republican, at today's first meeting of the Homeland Security Advisory Council in the second Donald Trump administration. He is the chair. The panel has 22 members. Some of the others, former New York City mayor and attorney to Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Homeland Security Advisor Corey Lewandowski, and Bikers for Trump co-founder Chris Cox. The Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was also at this first meeting, emphasizing that everyone there was either chosen by her or President Trump. And she said topics the council will focus on are military operations, immigration, disaster response, airline safety, and national security. Associated Press writing that a judge's order throws into doubt one of the key pillars of President Trump's plan to crack down on migration at the southern border. U.S. District Judge Randolph Moss says his order will take effect July 16th, giving the Trump administration 2 weeks to appeal. In order signed January 20th, Trump declared the situation at the southern border constitutes an invasion of America and that he was suspending the physical entry of migrants and their ability to seek asylum until he decides it's over. Moss wrote that neither the Constitution nor immigration law gives the president an extra statutory, extra regulatory regime for repatriating or removing individuals from the United States without an opportunity to apply for asylum or other humanitarian protections. That was from Associated Press. From Reuters, Hamas said on Wednesday it was studying what U.S. President Donald Trump called a final ceasefire proposal for Gaza, but that Israel must pull out of the enclave, and Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu said Hamas would be eliminated. Trump said on Tuesday Israel had agreed to the conditions needed to finalize a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas after a meeting between his representatives and Israeli officials. In a statement, the Palestinian militant group said it was studying new ceasefire offers received from mediators Egypt and Qatar, but that it aimed to reach an agreement that would ensure an end to the war and an Israeli pullout from Gaza. That was from Reuters. This came up at today's State Department briefing in Washington with spokesperson Tammy Bruce.
On this final ceasefire proposal for Gaza that Trump has said Israel has agreed to, does it include provisions for Israel pulling out of Gaza?
What I am going to, the president had a message about that from last night, and I'll read that for you, so we just get this on the record here. From the President, Donald Trump. My representatives had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize the 60-day ceasefire, during which time we will work with all the parties to end the war. The Qataris and the Egyptians, who have worked very hard to help bring peace, will deliver this final proposal. I hope for the good of the Middle East that Hamas takes this deal because it will not get better. It will only get worse. Thank you for your attention to this matter. As far as your question about the details, I won't go into the details of what's in the proposal.
Hamas has said that Israel must pull out of the enclave. How does the administration plan to reconcile this? Is that addressed in the proposal?
I will not give you the details of the proposal, and we'll find out, but I think the president's message is clear. This is one that has to be accepted because it will only get worse if they don't.
State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce at her news conference in Washington. More from the Reuters article. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called for the elimination of Hamas in his first public remarks since Trump's announcement. Netanyahu told a meeting hosted by the Trans-Israel Pipeline, there will not be a Hamas, there will not be a Hamastan. We're not going back to that. It's over. Another article from Reuters, Iranian president put into effect on Wednesday a law passed by Parliament last week to suspend cooperation with the United Nations nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, Iranian state media reported. From CNN, the Trump administration is pausing some weapon shipments to Ukraine, including air defense missiles, following a review of military spending and American support to foreign countries, a senior White House official told CNN. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth signed off on the review, which the official noted had been underway for months. It was not immediately clear if military support provided to other countries would be affected. White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly said the decision was made to put America's interests first. Russia welcomed the decision, claiming, without providing any evidence, it was made because the U.S. did not have enough weapons. That was from CNN. This also was raised at the State Department briefing with spokesperson Tammy Bruce.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Tammy. A White House official told our colleagues that the Trump administration has paused certain weapons shipments to Ukraine. What was the State Department's role in making this decision to pause these weapons shipments? And are you concerned about the advantage it gives to the Russians?
Well, traditionally, of course, our wheelhouse here is diplomacy. We don't make decisions about the shipping of weapons or the managing of weaponry during war. We have the Department of Defense. I would refer you to them when it comes to this kind of a decision. At the same time, we've got a few things I can say to you regarding this. It remains, as you might imagine, worth repeating, a priority of President Trump to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to an end through a durable negotiated settlement, starting with an immediate ceasefire. And of course, just referring you to the Department of Defense for more information regarding that situation regarding weapons. Anna Kelly, a White House spokesperson, also has noted this decision was made to put America's interests first following a DoD review of our nation's military support and assistance to other countries around the globe. The strength of the United States Armed Forces remains unquestioned. Just ask Iran. Also, from a statement by Elbridge Colby from the 2nd, which was yesterday, at the DoD, that the Department of Defense, quote, continues to provide the president with robust options to continue military aid to Ukraine. At the same time, the department is rigorously examining and adapting its approach to achieving this objective, while also preserving U.S. forces' readiness for administration's defense priorities.
State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce taking reporters' questions at today's State Department press conference. She mentioned that the Pentagon would handle that issue. They also held a news conference. Here's the press secretary, Sean Parnell.
Obviously, with respect to Ukrainian aid, the United States announced that they are going to be withholding certain aspects of aid. Ukraine responded by saying that this is going to embolden Russia. What is the department's response to that argument?
Well, the president's strategic outset with regards to Ukraine and Russia has been one of peace. He campaigned on this. When he was asked on a town hall with CNN about that war, he said he wanted to just stop people from dying. And so peace has been the president's highest aspiration. We here at the department support those goals and those missions. But it's important to remember that the stuff that I mentioned in my topper, like what we've done here at the Department of Defense is create a framework to analyze what munitions we're sending where to help the President and the Secretary of Defense make decisions. And so ultimately, our job here at the Department of Defense is to pursue the President's America First agenda and make sure that we achieve peace through strength throughout the world.
Pentagon Press Secretary Sean Parnell at a news conference today at the Pentagon. This issue also came up later as there was a question about U.S. stockpiles.
Do y'all believe that the Biden administration the past 4 years sort of basically opened up the door to Ukraine and say, take whatever you want, and without much idea to sort of keep control of the inventory? And is that one of the reasons why you want to see what's in the storage and not?
Absolutely. I think that for a long time, 4 years under the Biden administration, we were giving away weapons and munitions without really thinking about how many we have. And I think that this president was elected on putting this country first and defending the homeland. And then you couple that with our national defense strategy and a shift to the Indo-Pacific. And part of our job is to give the president a framework that he can use to evaluate how many munitions we have and where we're sending them. And that review process is happening right now, and it's ongoing.
Pentagon Press Secretary Sean Parnell at his news conference. A story from the Washington Post. President Donald Trump recently indicated he might supply Ukraine with Patriot missiles, a system that the Ukrainians need to repel Russian ballistic missile attacks. American officials did not specify which weapons were being halted, but news reports indicated that they could include air defense systems. which had been allocated to Ukraine by the previous Biden administration. That was from Washington Post. And also about this pause from Politico, the decision was driven by the Pentagon's policy chief, Elbridge Colby, and was made after a review of Pentagon munition stockpiles, leading to concerns that the total number of artillery rounds, air defense missiles, and precision munitions was sinking, according to three people familiar with the issue. That was from Politico. In response to that article, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur, Democrat from Ohio, writing on X, "If this is true, then Mr. Colby, who opposed military assistance to Ukraine and even refused to acknowledge that Russia's actions amounted to an invasion of Ukraine in his confirmation hearing, is taking action that will surely result in the imminent death of many Ukrainian military and civilians." That post from Congresswoman Kaptur. President Donald Trump will be in Iowa on Thursday to kick off the celebration of America's 250th birthday. This morning, C-SPAN spoke with Ambassador Monica Crowley, Chief of Protocol of the United States.
So we're kicking it off tomorrow. It is going to be a huge event held at the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines, Iowa. The president is coming, and I will be with him. He is going to be our headline act for this event tomorrow, giving very special remarks at about 7:30 Central Time. I'll be speaking right before him, but we anticipate that he is going to kick off 250 years of American leadership, patriotism, strength, and pride. And we look forward to a full year of celebration and events, not just nationally here in Washington, but in all 50 states and U.S. territories.
You mentioned that you'll be with President Trump tomorrow. You'll also be speaking. Explain your specific role.
So the president last December, right after the election, he called me and offered me the position of Chief of Protocol of the United States, which comes with ambassador rank. So I'm very proud to say, Tammy, that I am America's ambassador, which I wear with pride. And in addition to those protocol duties, he also asked me to serve as the administration representative for America 250, the FIFA World Cup, which is also taking place next year. Next year is going to be a huge year for America. And the 2028 Los Angeles Olympic Games, which President Trump heroically brought to the United States. So I am working with the administration, but particularly on this with America 250 and the commission that's overseeing America's birthday, to make sure that we celebrate in a way that all Americans can enjoy and in a way that really unites the country through patriotism, shared values, and this renewed sense of civic pride.
Ambassador Monica Crowley, Chief of Protocol of the United States, on C-SPAN's Washington Journal program this morning. And as the U.S. approaches its 250th anniversary, C-SPAN is proud to announce the launch of America 250, Exploring the American Story, an expansive 18-month initiative commemorating this historic milestone. Through in-depth historical context, expert commentary, and immersive storytelling, C-SPAN will bring viewers and listeners closer to the American story. Past and present coverage will spotlight foundational documents like the Declaration of Independence, Treaty of Paris, and the Constitution, travel to key Revolutionary War-era sites, and feature vivid reenactments, panel discussions, and educational segments. We'll also delve into C-SPAN's video library to showcase our extensive collection of programs that illuminate key moments and figures in American history. You can find out more at our website, cspan.org. We've got a special America 250 page. And thanks for listening to Washington Today. Sign up for C-SPAN's evening newsletter Word for Word and get the stories making headlines in Washington emailed to you every day. Subscribe at cspan.org/connect. Have a good night.